Hey guys, and welcome to Functional Print Friday, and welcome back to my shop. So a couple of weeks ago right here on the channel, we used one of these tiny M2x16 cap head bolts to strengthen a car part that we made in the Z direction. Actually broke a couple of these too to test the strength, so if you missed that, go check those out. But what I didn't show you at the time was when I went to put in this little tiny M2 cap head bolt, I actually did not have the right Allen key. What you saw me use in the video was me digging through all of my loose Allen keys. And I did find one that was an Imperial one that kind of fit in here, but this is a metric cap head bolt. And it was loose in there. Fortunately, it did not strip it out. I was able to get them in and out for the video. But yeah, I didn't have the right tool. And that does not happen to me that often because I kind of pride myself in having a pretty good collection of tools here in the shop. But at the same time, I'm also kind of excited when I don't have the right tool because it means I get to go tool shopping. And before you guys give me a hard time down in the comments, this thing is really, really tiny. I've had this set for a while. I guess I hadn't used any of the M2 cap head bolts out of here because that's the first time I encountered it. But I have, I'd say, over a dozen different sets of Allen keys in metric alone. And none of them went down to this size. All of my sets go down to either 2mm or 1.5mm. I measured this with the caliper, and this guy is 1.3. And I thought maybe they just undersized it, and I tried another one, same thing. And I looked, and in fact, there is a standard size 1.3 head. There's actually, I think, a 0.9 and a 0.7 as well. So it was definitely time to go tool shopping. Let me show you what I got. So I picked up this set made by Wera, and these guys are based in Germany. It looks like this particular set is made in the Czech Republic. And their tools are really nice if you haven't tried any of their stuff. I will put a link to this down in the description of the video if you also find yourself not having these really tiny little Allen keys. And these precision sets are nice. I do have a set of these in, I think, Torx and Flathead and Phillips. I just never had a need for hex smaller than 1.5. Let's see here. So this one, yeah, here's the 1.5. I do have this size in several sets. And if you go and check your own tools, I bet you'll find that you probably don't have a metric Allen key smaller than this either, but they actually go down 3 more sizes. It might even go smaller than that, I don't know. These are the standard smaller ones that I found in my brief searches. So this is a 1.3. This should actually be the right one for that fastener. Let's just check. Oh yeah, that fits that really, really nice. Probably can't get it out, and I bet it's bent in there. All right, if that wasn't bent, I was actually going to put it back in the container to reuse it sometime in the future, but it actually is bent a little bit, which doesn't surprise me based on how hard we yanked on this thing. So again, that was the 1.3, and you can certainly make out the hex shape on the bottom of that one. I'm actually surprised I just didn't have one in that size. The 0.9 is really, really quite small, but I can still kind of make out the hex shape on the end of it. The 0.7 is so tiny, I can't even tell that that is a hex on the end. It's probably much bigger on your screen, assuming the camera is actually focusing here, so you can probably make it out. But yeah, that guy is really tiny. And admittedly, unless you're working on stuff that has really small fasteners, you'll probably never need these sizes, but I'm happy to have added them to my collection. Now, many of you probably already know where this is going because there's no way I'm going to be happy just having them in this box. So let's just get them laid out here first by size. Yeah, I know, I can hear you. But if you're watching this channel, you're probably at least half as OCD as I am. Right? Right? So what I'd like to have is some sort of at least semi-soft kind of tool roll that they would all fit into in more or less this orientation. Yeah, here's my precision set with Flat and Phillips in it, just for comparison. And these guys are in this upside down, not by preference, it's because it's impossible to tell what they are if you don't have them in upside down. They do have markings on them. That is probably the ID number for the tool. Like this one's Flathead, this one's Phillips. That's 261p, this is 260p, so it's not particularly useful. I don't really want to put these in upside down. The markings on these are a little bit better, but I'd still like to have some marking on the package itself. Like in a perfect world, this would say what these are on the bottom or have some indicator so that I could have them in the other way around and still know what they are. Now we could probably just make one similar to this out of fabric and sew it, and that would be a perfectly acceptable solution. It would actually be a pretty good solution, honestly, but this isn't a sewing channel. It's a 3D printing channel, And while it would be probably actually less work to sew a custom one for these one time, the advantage of designing it for 3D printing is once all the work is done, you just hit print again and you can have as many as you want, and you guys get the benefit of being able to print it as well. So previously on the channel, we designed this guy. This was sort of my first attempt at this type of 3D printed tool holder, and this is done in TPU. This is not really the best use case. There are particular tools that in here, these Noga deburring tools have really thick handles, but it's just kind of what I had in mind to try it, and I do use it. I mean, they're still in here. This, you can see actually the fold marks on here. This is in one of my machining drawers, and it doesn't really fold over that great. I think a fold over design with TPU just doesn't really work that well because it sort of still has some memory to it. I think it works really well with fabric, not so well with TPU. Now, if these tools were really small, maybe it would roll up nicer. I don't know. Now, while I think we can largely copy a lot of the design elements of this one, including using the PLA or PETG supports for these pockets, since this basically prints flat, and then we just pull the supports out of these to make these pockets. There are two ideas that we discussed in the comments of the video when I published and made this one that I would like to try and incorporate in the design for these guys. The first one is magnets. You guys suggested, several people suggested, putting magnets in the flap and down here so that the flap stays shut and kind of this stays in better shape, and that would be a lot better. The other thing I would like to try is one of the challenges with designing flat like this in TPU. So this is printed flat. So this is, imagine, these are more than one layer thick, but if you missed the video where we designed this one, imagine this is one layer of TPU, then we have a layer of PLA or PETG inside this pocket. You can actually see the difference in texture there on the TPU, and then another layer of TPU on top. And once you remove the support material, you're left with a pocket. The problem is you can't really duplicate the effect that you get when you sew one of these. So if I open this back up, you can see what they do here. It's not really as evident on a wider pocket, but if we look at one of the smaller pockets, this one's a great example. What they've done is, like, there's more fabric there than it actually takes to go from this point to this point. There's extra fabric so that it forms kind of a pouch. We can't really do that with the TPU. I mean, I guess we kind of could. Like, we could design a support in there that had like a humped shape to it, but then we wouldn't have the nice smooth surface on the top of the TPU unless we could do like non-planar printing there, because it would be multiple layers and it would still be stepped. There'd be, yeah, we'd have to make it twice as thick because the layers would have to bond to each other. That would be a mess. But I have another idea, and again, I'm pretty sure we discussed it in the comments of that video. If you remember, we did another video where we made like a bellows structure with the TPU. Actually, let me see if I still have that piece. Yeah, this is the piece I'm talking about. So this prints completely flat on the bed, just like this, except when I printed it, there are support layers between each one of these. And once you remove the support layers, this opens up kind of the same as you would expect from a bellows structure constructed from either like thin steel or fabric. And in fact, James over at Claw42 contacted me after I published that video, and I did this just as a proof of concept. He actually designed way covers for his CNC milling machine project with this idea, and they came out really nice. I'll link to his video down in the description as well. Totally worth checking out if you haven't seen it. But what if we took that same idea and applied it to the pockets on this guy? So this pocket over here could actually be a lot narrower. The only reason it's this wide is so that this opens up large enough for this guy to slide into. Well, what if it didn't have to be that wide? What if we actually built in a bellows structure on the sides of the pocket so that this guy could actually lift up? Now, I mean, we're not going to get like 2, 3x, you know, the size of this, but I mean, we could probably get, say, the same result of having a pocket that opens that large in, you know, 2/3 to maybe even 1/2 the amount of space, because there's quite a few of these and we are limited by the width of the printer. And I'd like to go even narrower than this. You saw how I had them laid out on the table. That's ideally what I would like to end up with. There's no reason it needs to be this wide. All right, enough talking. I think it's time to start designing. So I'm going to take these guys up to my desk. I'm going to get a bunch of measurements and I'm going to start drawing something up, and I'll bring you guys back. And I don't think we're going to go full size on the first go. If I recall, this took quite a while to print, and we're going to have a lot more complexity with those little bellows structures on the sides. So we'll probably start small, maybe with just like a single pocket or 2 pockets, and kind of try and figure this out before we go for the whole thing. All right, and here is the initial design that I came up with for this. And I gotta say, this was challenging. It is not easy to wrap your head around what this geometry needs to look like to get the result that you want. Seeing it here drawn, it's kind of obvious now, but when you're starting from a blank screen, like I kind of started and then deleted my work and started over, I think 3 times until I really kind of wrapped my head around how this needed to look for this to work the way I wanted and to have clearances on both sides. And I still don't know that this is gonna work, but I think even if it doesn't work closer, well, we're certainly closer than we were with no design, but I think this is a good first step. And if I delete sort of the bottom and the top here, you can kind of get a better idea of what is going on. We have sort of just a twofold bellows structure, and it tapers down towards the bottom. This is a pocket that I'm thinking of, when I mentioned the fabric holder, I said it would be ideal if we had sort of markings down here in the bottom. TPU is notoriously hard to mark, even with a fiber laser. So I'm thinking maybe we can put a little pocket here on the bottom and then slip a thin piece of PLA that we fiber laser mark. The nice thing about marking with the fiber laser is you can get really, really small text and still have it extremely crisp versus trying to 3D print the text. So that's my thought here. And it'll be open at the top, so sort of that card will just slide down into there. But actually, let's just get this out of the way for right now. And if I delete the tops of these, you can kind of even get a better idea of what that bellows structure looks like from both the bottom here as well as the top. Again, this isn't the whole thing. This is just, we're going to start with just 2 of these and just kind of see if it works. If you missed the other videos on the channel where I have done multi-material supports for TPU, all of this area that is sort of hollow in the pocket is going to be filled with PETG HF. And then we'll sort of break that loose and hopefully just slide it out. And then not only will we have the depth of this pocket, which really isn't that deep at all, it's kind of deceiving because this is so small. That is 1.4 millimeters there in the Z from this face to the face up here. But this will open up because it'll be able to flex at these corners here, and hopefully we open up to a much larger pocket. So, all right, I'm gonna slice this up. I'm gonna print it. I'll bring you guys back. All right, our first test print is done, but we've got some issues. So I fiddled with trying to get the supports out of this down in my basement where my 3D printers are ready, and you can see this is torn. This side I didn't even bother trying to get out. You know, it seems like each brand of TPU, you gotta kind of just try and figure out which support materials work best with it. This is Sunlu TPU, and this is PETG HF from Bambu. It's really stuck on there. Like I would say it's bonded to it. You can see where I could really flex it. I can get it to separate a little bit. Got the top to separate. I could not get the bottom to separate. I did manage to get it to separate on this side, and you can see how much it stuck to it there. But this tore in the process. So I think what I'm gonna do is try just reprinting this with PLA for the supports and see if that is any better. I'm realizing that I think our pocket's not going to work out. Like this is just, you see how that's lifting. And then if we try one of these guys in here, like that's bending. I think if I put a really thin piece of material that is laser marked in here, I think it's going to end up just popping out of that pocket. And yeah, we could make these wider to try and keep it in there. But I don't think having this large top piece here is going to be practical. So I'm going to also adjust the geometry to have the side open and the top closed and see if that is any better. So I'm going to reprint this, bring you guys back. All right, I've been messing around with this off camera. It's still tore. It's definitely coming apart cleaner with the PLA. I think PLA is the right choice for this Sunlu TPU for supports. And if you look, there's no residue down there like we had on the first part. It's really clean up here, but it seems like the PLA is still just really getting stuck in those corners. Like these are super hard to get out. Once you get it sort of flexing, it will detach, but it's making a really good seal against the TPU, and particularly in these corners. So what I think I might try doing is just reducing the flow rate of the PLA. I don't think it's over extruded. I just think if we under extrude it a little bit, it might be easier to get out of there. And this is definitely much better. I still don't know if I like it, but with the side opening, and I did get all the supports out of there. So I think if we increase the width of the border a little bit, that would probably work. But I'm gonna stop messing with this because until we get geometry that works for these the bellow structures for the pocket. We're just kind of wasting our time with these little side quests. So, all right, I'm going to go reprint this again and bring you back. All right, the print finished, but I still don't have good news. This still tore pretty easy in the process of trying to get that out. I didn't even bother trying to remove this side. So you can see, I mean, it does separate from it. Yeah, look how easy that's tearing. And I think I've made a discovery as to why these are so hard to get out. And it's a dumb mistake on my part. I didn't put that much effort. Well, I mean, I did put a fair amount of effort, but I didn't treat this like it was a final design. I just kind of wanted to see if we could make this work. And what I realized is I've designed a support that is sort of locked in place. Let me just tear this the rest of the way open so I can show you. Oh, interesting. It doesn't want to tear as easily down here at the bottom. Let's just force it. Yeah, you can see right there. So this is totally a mistake on my part. The support's actually wider at the bottom because our pocket opens up underneath the bellows structure here. The bellows tapers down, but it tapers down to the minimum width that I felt that it would still be sort of, you know, functional to attach at the bottom so it didn't tear apart down here. But that means that our support sort of naturally is locking into place. So I think we could fix that. I think I can adjust that geometry down here. I don't think we need them to be as wide down at the bottom. That's just, again, dumb mistake on my part. And you can see we've lost a little bit of the surface quality on the inside of the pocket, reducing the flow rate, but it separates a lot easier now. So I think I'm going to stick with that. This is 0.85 flow rate on the PLA. I think I might go down to 0.8. I mean, if 0.85 worked really well, maybe 0.8 will be even better. But let me revise this, and I'll bring you guys back. All right, so here we are in Bambu Studio, and I wanted to show you guys in here versus the CAD design again, because I did fix the geometry inside so that the support isn't like somehow keyed and trapped into there. But the other thing I thought of was, what if we just put a support blocker right down the middle of this guy, forcing that support to be in two pieces? I think that's going to make it a lot easier to remove, in addition to getting rid of those keyed areas. So if we flip over to the preview here, we go down through the layers, you can see on this side where I have that support blocker, the support's basically split. It kind of looks like it's still touching, so it might be connected just a little bit, but I think that should break out of there with no issue. And you can see now as we go down through here that the support's not like keyed in and stuck down at the bottom. I brought that geometry over so we don't end up with that. We can still kind of see it here, but it's not sticking it inside there. That's just the geometry that goes in underneath the pleat of the bellows. Like that's still gonna naturally, especially if we could break this into two pieces, should slide out no problem. I'm gonna leave this side as is, partly just because I'm also curious what the difference looks like from a surface quality. I don't anticipate the TPU having any problem bridging over this, but I figure we'll do one side this way, and just, you know, kind of compare them and see how they look. So, all right, I'm gonna hit print. I'll bring you guys back. All right, I've got good news and I've got bad news. And yeah, I removed the supports off camera. Again, when we get to the final design, I'll remove the supports on camera so you guys can see how easy or how difficult it is. This is the test where we had the support blocker on the one side. And you can see we do now have an artifact on the surface. It's a little bit more pronounced on the inside, but that worked really nice. Being able to separate that in two pieces made it come out way easier. I actually managed to get this one out as well. I did tear both sides. This one I only tore a little bit. I think there was like a tiny spot on the side. And then out of frustration, I kind of just tore the rest. I don't know why this is tearing so easily. I did not put that much pressure on this one when removing the supports. Honestly, the supports came out fairly easy, given that they're tucked into like 3 different layers here. So I got a little head scratching to do because I don't understand why this is bonding like here. This one's not torn here yet. Look at this. I know you don't know how hard I'm pulling on that, but it's not that hard and it's tearing. All right, we're back here in Bambu Studio. I think I have this figured out. So we're at layer 14. That is the top of sort of these pouches. There's layers above this where this, you know, the card slides in, but layer 14 is the top layer for the actual pouches. And if we zoom way in, you can kind of get an idea what's going on here. So if we look at this top layer, it's sort of glued on to all these other layers here. It comes all the way across. But if we go down one layer, it now only comes over to this point. Now, yeah, I mean, these line ends are going to kind of stick into this, but we have these two walls here. So that very top layer is, honestly, it's just attached to this one little piece here. Below that, there's really no attachment at all. Like the layer underneath it that it's attaching to, you see, it's even offset a little bit. So I think that's why that's happening. So if we go and we set wall loops to 1, and we slice this again, take a look at that. Now, every single one of those solid layers is now sort of, stuck on all the way into the middle of that stack up. I think that's our problem. I'm not 100% sure. I guess we're not going to know until we print it, but I think that's what's going on. So I think this is that one weird use case where one wall is stronger than 2 walls. Let's print it, see what happens. I think we're there. This looks pretty good, and I haven't torn it at all. So I think that was our issue. Now, I also didn't really try and tear this. Yeah, we can try and tear it here now that the camera's rolling. Oh yeah, that is way stronger. Like night and day. I mean, I'm sure we can still tear it. Yeah, once you get it started, it does. Yeah, I mean, even, it's still a lot. I'm pulling on that a lot harder than I was on the other one. Oh, actually did miss a little bit of support in there. Probably doesn't stop it from working correctly. But I think that largely solved our problem with the edge. I wasn't careful at all removing the supports on this because, remember, this is just a test of 2 pockets. Our final design is going to have 7 of these. So if I can't get all 7 out reliably, which is realistically 14 pieces of support, then there's no point. I don't want to print 17 of these until I finally, manage to not break one in the process of separating the supports. And I think we're wasting our time with this pocket. I'm just going to nix this on the final design. These are really nicely marked at the top. So if we're putting them in the pockets in this direction, and we talked about the OCD thing earlier in the video, I know I'm going to end up putting them all back, with the marking facing me so I can see what size they are. So I think we'll just nix the idea on the pocket. I do still want to do the magnet closure though, so I need some time to wrap my head around that. And also, one thing I didn't even consider when we started this project, these are different lengths. So I don't think that really changes anything because the geometry of the handle is exactly the same, but this is shorter. So I think we'll need to adjust our design so that the pockets are not quite as deep on the shorter ones so that they all sit at the same height. All right, I've got some drawing to do, and I've got to figure out how we're going to incorporate the magnets as well. So I'm going to go do that. I'll bring you guys back. All right, guys, and here is the design for the full tool pouch with all 7 pockets and room for the magnets incorporated as well. I had to actually shrink the pockets all by just a little bit to make room for like a wider open area here between these 2 pouches and these 2 pouches for the magnet. And these are really small magnets. I think these are 3mm wide magnets. It's funny, everything looks so big in here in CAD, even though this geometry is for the most part pretty small. You're probably wondering what these sticks are here. If you recall, in Bambu Studio, the last test we did, I added that support blocker object for the test, and that worked fine. But when I was modeling the rest of this out, I thought, geez, how am I going to get all those support blockers in Bambu Studio to be exactly in the right position? And since we do end up with an artifact on the top, it would drive me nuts if they weren't all centered exactly in those pockets. So I just went ahead and just modeled the support blocker geometry right here in CAD, and I'll just export this as a separate STL. And we'll import it at the same time we import the STL for the rest of the geometry. And when you do that in Bambu Studio, it'll ask you, if you select more than one STL or more than one design at the same time, it'll ask you if they are part of the same object. Just say yes. That groups them together, and then you can change the type of your either supports or support blocker to be the appropriate type within Bambu Studio. A couple other things I did here. I thinned this out where I want it to bend. So this material is naturally going to bend at that point because that is where it is thinnest, so we don't have to fight with this guy to get it to fold over. It should fold over there, no problem. You're probably wondering why the magnet pockets are so large. They don't really need to be this large. They're intentionally raised up to try and get them to actually get close to touching. It's deceiving here because this is all flat, like these are folded down flat the way that they're going to print, but once the hex drivers are in here, it's going to sit up probably by, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 millimeters. So we need these magnets to kind of sit down and touch or get close to touching these ones. Now the material itself, TPU, it's going to flex a little bit, but if we have these flush, they're never going to go all the way down there close enough to each other to work. And we do need about probably half that geometry for the magnet itself. I think they're 2.75 millimeters in thickness. So I think at this point I just got to go for it. This is going to be a really long print. I thickened up this section over here so that it's a bit more rigid. What I'm trying to avoid is it takes some force to flex these bellows out, or these pleats. So I don't want the back of this to flex. I want this to have a little bit of stiffness to it so that the whole thing doesn't sort of bend and flex at the back like that one we did for the Noga tools. I really want these to rise up and this to just stay flat back here. So, all right, I'm gonna slice this up, hit print, and I'll bring you guys back. Well, the print's done, but unfortunately, we're not done. I could see when this was printing that there was some extrusion issues here. I let it go because it was already a couple hours in, and this is, I think, a 12.5-hour print at this point. This is probably bigger than you think. This would not fit on the bed of my P1S or X1C, even if those machines had multiple tool heads. This takes up the full depth of the bed on the H2D and most of the width as well. And I probably should have just made it a little bit wider. I shrunk the size of these because I really didn't want to go wider than this to incorporate the magnets. I think I took maybe only either 1 or 2 millimeters off of each one of these pouches, thinking that we had a little extra space, and we don't. You see, I only removed the supports on these two over here. If I pop one of these guys in, it goes in, but it's too tight. You can see how taut that is there. And yeah, some of that would probably stretch over time, but it's just too tight. This is also incredibly bulky. I thought I would want this to be thicker down here, and then this to be thicker up here as well. I'm happy with the thickness of this. Like, this feels just right. Like, I wouldn't want this thicker or thinner, but this could be thinner, and this definitely needs to be thinner. Like, it's really bulky as is. Magnets fit well, so that's a plus, but I made a dumb mistake on the position of these. I don't know how I got this so wrong, but look how far apart those are. I know I adjusted the position of this one, and I can only guess that I then moved the position of the top one in the wrong direction because they are off by, looks like probably 30 millimeters. So we're going to be reprinting this anyway. Now, fortunately, it's not a total loss because we at least do know that the geometry for retaining the magnets is good. I don't know how well the camera is picking that up, but you can see that it is actually sitting below the surface. It kind of popped in there and it's retained, so that's good. Just need to get them into the right position. I think the bigger challenge is how do we make these pockets bigger? The easy answer would be we go wider, and we could. Kind of artificially constraining myself here because at this width it will fit into the tool drawer that I want to put it in. If we go any wider, it won't. I think I have like an extra 3 millimeters right now. And again, that comes from picking up the space to put these two magnets in here. And if you're thinking we could move them down further, we really can't because we still have the channels down here in the bottom that separates the pockets. And in addition to that, it doesn't reach anyway. And we are at the maximum depth that we can print on the H2D at the current size. So I can't make the flap any longer. What I'm wondering is if maybe we just increase the size of the pleats here for like our bellows structure. Like, what if we just made them a little bit wider? Any additional width that we add, we'd get back like twofold, because there's two folds. So make a mess with that. I'll bring you guys back. All right, we're back here in Bambu Studio, and this is the updated, hopefully final design. You can actually see these pleats look a little wider here on the opening of all of these pockets, and then they taper down. But what I wanted to show you guys was what these supports look like in here, or rather these support blockers. If we go over to the Objects tab, you can see that there's two STLs in here, and I open these again at the same time and just tell it yes that you do want them to be part of the same object. And you can see the icons here are a little bit different between these two because this one is a support blocker. And once you've got these imported, all you've got to do is just right click on this and hit change type. And you see I've got it set to support blocker, but you've got several other options in here as well, including if you want to do Boolean operations on these, or if you want to enforce support in a certain part of your model. So that can be really valuable. Don't forget that as a tool. I mean, there's a lot you can do in CAD, but there's a lot that you actually want to do in the slicer as well. If nothing more, because in this case, I can keep updating this design, and as long as I don't change the overall dimensions of it, like if I just make tweaks to various parts of it, I don't even need to update that supports.stl. I can just keep re-importing that and change it to a support, in this case blocker, right here in the slicer. The other thing I wanted to show you really quick is just the support settings for this, because we are doing things a little bit different than what you typically do for supports. So I have both the RAF base and the RAF interface, or I should say support/RAF, support/RAF interface, set to be PLA. This might be PETG-HF in your case, or it might even be a specialized support filament. But if you are printing with a disparate material that you don't expect to stick, there are a number of things that you want to change. And I've actually noticed in the most recent versions of Bambu Studio, a tooltip pops up and suggests making some of those changes, and I think it'll even do it for you. I just re-imported my settings from the last time that I used supports like this. But in short, you're largely just changing all of these distances to 0, particularly your Z distance ones, because you're laying that material right down on the other material. In this case, I have the top interface layer set to 1. I'll set these to 3 in some cases when I'm doing actual supports on, larger models where I want to make sure it builds up to a solid layer. In this case, because I'm doing the density of 100% for the whole thing, it really doesn't matter. They're basically all solid interface layers. And the XY distance, I've tweaked this one a little bit too. I think for these types of supports, 0.2 millimeters works well. If you set it to 0, it's going to get stuck in those corners even more. So you can fool around with this. Again, none of these are universal settings. These are probably all going to change a little bit depending on the specific part that you're making and the materials that you are working from. But yeah, I mean, it's a good starting point. All right, while we're waiting for that to print, I wanted to take just a second and thank all of my patrons over on Patreon. We've got a pretty active community here, and we've got a private Discord channel as well, just for Patreon members. It's a public channel as well, so if you're not on the public Discord channel, check that out too. If you come over to my site, fpfdesigns.com, there's links right on here. This one will take you to Discord, and there's a link to take you to Patreon as well if you are interested in supporting the channel. As this channel grows, I really want to keep the channel funded by the community. I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human, subconsciously or consciously. I don't want to be incented to do something that is not what is the best for you guys. So if you have the ability to support the channel, awesome. If not, I love seeing your comments, down under each video. A lot of the ideas for improving the designs that we have in future videos come from down in the comments. So, guys, please keep that coming. And as this channel has grown, I've started to now get offers to put ads in the videos. Brilliant actually just reached out and offered to put ads on 5 videos before the end of the year. And it was honestly a very generous offer. And I think Brilliant's great. And you've probably seen it on other creators' channels. And I guess just even mentioning it, I'm giving them free ad space. And that's fine. The idea of continuous learning and just learning new things is awesome. So, that is something I would consider doing on the channel, but I don't really want to do it. You guys are probably already seeing ads through YouTube. If you don't have YouTube Premium, the last thing you need is, me telling you about something for, another 2 or 3 minutes in a video that is hard to skip. So I really don't want to go in that direction. I'd love it if we could just keep the channel, self-funded. Another thing I wanted to just briefly talk about is I've kept it no secret that a lot of the things that we've had the opportunity to play with here on the channel, and I can see a couple right here in the thumbnails on the channel, are things that companies have sent out completely free, for us to try out on the channel. And, they're smart. They know if they send something out and it works well and I like it, I'm probably going to be excited to share it with you guys, or I'm probably going to use it to make something and, show you guys that thing and what tools I use to make it. And I don't have any problem with that, as long as it doesn't create a conflict, hamper my ability to communicate to you guys what I actually think of something and how well it actually works. Honestly, it's one of the very few perks of spending a whole bunch of your time on YouTube is, getting access to things that otherwise might be difficult to get, either because they're expensive or because in some cases they're not even, released yet. And, again, I plan on continuing to do that. And most companies have been great to work with. Some notable examples are, Bambu Lab, Cheedy, Soraya, Precision Matthews. These are all companies that, no strings attached, have just set something out for us to try. They don't ask about when a video is coming out or even if a video is going to come out. They don't say, do say these things, but don't say these things, or don't talk about this, or don't say anything negative about it. And the big one for me is a lot of companies, again, not the ones I mentioned, but a lot of companies will ask to review the video before you publish it. And that to me is an absolute non-starter, because I don't want to be thinking about, gee, is the company going to like this while I'm shooting a video and talking about it? Because that's for you guys to hear. I want to be thinking about what you guys want to hear. I don't want to be thinking about what they want to hear. So to that point, especially since now I've really had a lot more people reaching out to me, especially lately, I put together a review policy. And I based this on the Teaching Tech review policy because I think that's pretty much the gold standard for reviews. And I've just tweaked it a little bit to be a better fit for the types of things that we do here on this channel. And I'm not going to read this whole thing. You can come up to my website, fpfdesigns.com. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, there's a link here for review policy. But some of the key ones that I want to touch on, I don't accept any paid promotions. I've had a lot of companies reach out and say, not only would we like to send you this thing, but we're also going to pay you, X amount of money. And I think that is sort of their buy-in to have control over the video. Because hey, then it's like they're paying to have the video produced. So of course they should have, some sort of input into the video. And I want no part of that. I have never accepted any money from a company for any of the things that you've seen here on this channel. And I will not be accepting any money from companies for things you see here on the channel. Second one is, it's got to be the same thing that you guys would get. I can't say this has been an issue yet, but this is one that was in Teaching Tech's policy that I thought was a great, carryover. I don't want to receive things from companies that have been especially prepared for me to make sure that they're the best of the best. No, it's got to be the same thing that you guys are going to get if you pony up and you actually buy it. I'm going to skip one here because I'm going to come back to this one. This one's going to make more sense in a bit. This is one I added that I didn't actually see in the Teaching Tech review policy is, and I mentioned it before, I don't allow approval of my videos or project videos before posting, full stop. It's a non-starter. I don't want to be thinking about whether they're going to like something or not in the video. Now, to that point, I also don't want companies to be hesitant to send something out because they're worried that I'm intentionally going to take a negative take on it and the whole thing is just going to be, a bashing video of that thing. So I put a bullet in here, if an item arrives broken or damaged, fails to function, or functions so poorly that the review would be mostly negative or the inclusion would be mostly negative, I'll contact them and give them the ability to just say, hey, do you want your thing back? Send me a shipping label, I'll put it back in the box and send it back to you. I don't want to spend time creating a video about something that I hate. I'd rather just send it back to them and not even share it with you guys. So there's some other details in here as well. Again, I'm not going to go through all these, but you're welcome to come up and check this out. And I'll probably reference this review policy in the future when there's cool stuff on the channel that somebody sent out for us to play with. All right, guys, our final print is done. At least I sure hope it's our final print because it's actually almost 9:30 on Friday, the day this video is supposed to come out. So if we've got issues, unfortunately, we're not going to have time to print another one. I did, as soon as I pulled it off the bed, first thing I checked is to make sure I got the magnets in the right position, and I think we are good to go on that. And everything else looks really good too. There's a tiny amount of imperfection over here. Not quite sure what happened there. Could have even just been a variation in the filament itself, but otherwise this thing looks really clean. So, all right, let me get the camera moved over a little bit and we'll try and get one of these supports out on camera and then I'll pull the rest of the supports out off camera. So the way that I've been taking these out is just kind of flexing it like this at this center point. And this is bigger now because we increased the size of these pleats. This is one of those situations that once you get it started, it's easier. So one downside of under extruding the supports, sometimes they do separate a little bit. I found, by the way, 0.85 to be the sweet spot. When I went down to 0.8, they were a little bit, let's call it sparse. I think 0.85 is kind of the sweet spot. See if we get this one out of here in one piece. There we go. Wasn't too bad. And then there'll be one on this side. Got that one out. And these ones in the pockets, you know, I was actually using a tool that I was slipping down into here. Let me go grab that tool. This guy's good for sneaking into these pockets. I actually modified this quite a bit. I thought I would like this more than that other scraper, the larger one I was showing on the channel before, and I just can't seem to get the same edge on it. I think it's just not as high quality of a steel, but for like narrow spaces like this, it is good for sort of sneaking in there and just breaking it loose. If I can find this in my Amazon history, I'll link to this, but know that I have modified the end of this quite a bit. There's one side out. And there's the other side out. So that actually came out pretty easy. It's really tricky with the camera in the way here, so I'll do the rest of these off camera, but let's try one in here. This is one of the ones that's shortened. Oh wow, that is really nice. We have honestly room to spare in there now. I guess I shouldn't get excited yet until we have the rest of these cleared out, but yeah, I think that's going to be really good. All right, I'm going to get you guys out of the way, and I'm going to get in front of this and get the rest of these cleaned out. All right, got them all out. It was a big step forward coming up with the idea of splitting these into two pieces. I don't think I would have gotten all of these out cleanly because of the way they tuck into the sides if these were a single piece. But having them in two separate pieces made a huge difference. And no tears. Everything is intact. So let's see how these fit in here. Oh, that looks really good. I guess let's get the magnets in. Let's see how those work. This is, by the way, this is not bulky at all now. I think we're at the right thickness on everything. Not that we have time to reprint this at this point anyway, but this is great so far. All right, these should just press in, or actually kind of flex in. I have to be really careful to make sure I get them all in the right direction though, because I don't think I can get them back out. So how I do this when I press them in with the arbor press is I usually just keep them all in a stack to make sure I don't get them wrong. So let's see if we can do that. All right, I need to be able to flex this to press it in, so I'm going to have to take it off the stack. Just have to be really careful to make sure I don't flip the orientation. Okay, it's one in. I guess we can just, yeah, so we're that way. Take the next one off. A really satisfying little sort of pop as they clear the that lip at the top. Now for the ones at the top, I gotta think about this. They go in like that, I think. Well, these top ones, if we can get anything out, it'll be these top ones. So if I put one of these in wrong, it's not going to be the end of the world. Oh, that's right. Now, one's not quite enough to grab. Hopefully once we have the other side on there, that's going to be good. Let's see, so like that, which means we flip up like this. All right. Okay. I think that's probably going to be a little better once this fold becomes a little more developed back here. I could have even brought the position down a little bit. You see we have a little bit of room. up there at the top. Probably could have been down. Yeah, it could be down a little further. I don't know if that's worth reprinting or not, but that definitely, it stays on there. And I think once this sort of develops some memory into that shape, I think the hinge will naturally want to come back down. So those magnets, yeah, even now it's coming right down and those magnets are lining up. Clean up the workbench. Well, guys, I am really happy with how this turned out. I think the only thing that I would possibly change is just bring these magnets down a little bit in this direction so that this pulls a little bit tighter. There is, like I said, just a little bit of slack there, but I don't know. You tell me. Maybe that's good to have that. I guess we could also put a second sort of cut down here for it to hinge over top of these. Like right now, it definitely hinges naturally there because it's thinner. But we'd have sort of two natural spots where it hinged if we add another one of those. I'm probably overthinking it. I mean, this is honestly really great. So let me know what you guys think down in the comments. I say this all the time. I mean, I'm obviously biased. It's my design. This is exactly what I envisioned from the start. And in fact, honestly, I think this is probably exceeding my expectations. We pretty much incorporated everything I had in mind, and it came out really, really nice. But let me know, what would you have done differently? What would you change? Is there anything you particularly like or dislike about it? And guys, if this is by chance your first time here on the channel, it's all we do. It's all functional prints like this. I don't do any multicolored garbage of the week. It's all functional prints and or the engineering that goes along with those functional prints. So if you enjoyed this video, check out some of the other videos on the channel. And if you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. And guys, if you do, I'll see you next Friday.